Good morning. This is Kim De Silva from Language of Relationships. Welcome to Spanglish World Networks on Zingo TV channels 250 and 251. Please remember to download the Zingo TV app from the respective app stores on iOS and Android devices. While you download, make sure to rate and leave a comment. The app is free. Zingo TV is also available on Google Chromecast, Amazon Fire and Fire TV sticks, Roku and Roku sticks, and all smart TVs 2016 forward. Hello, Madhurima.
Hello,
Now,
hello.
now, before I tell you exactly who she is and what she does, I want Madhurima to tell you how she pronounces her name because she has a lovely way to help you remember how she pronounces her name.
Alrighty, let me jump in. Hello, everyone. I am Madhurima. You pronounce my name beautifully every single time, Kim, so I'm just gonna say that. But my name is very easy to pronounce if you imagine it going like a wave. So it goes Madhurima, Madhurima. And I am a global stress management facilitator who loves to support multi passionate, ambitious dreamers in managing their stress and preventing burnout so that they can achieve their dreams and goals without their own selves holding them back. Also on a mission to make stress management fun, because why not? And I think my list of achievements are quite long, so I don't want to bore you with it. Let's get into this amazing space. I'm really excited to be here. Woo, thank you for inviting me.
You're welcome, and we will talk about some of those achievements as well. Don't worry, we'll get to that. We'll get to that too. And I one of the reasons why I asked you to introduce your name is because I always think of I like the wave analogy because I live in the Caribbean, right? So the beach is my happy place. It's my stress-free place. So I love waves. I love watching them. I'm not a surfer. I don't need to be caught in the middle of the wave, but to watch them. So that's my stress relief. So I always associate that comparison with you because of
Oh,
you.
thank you so much. I love being compared to classic stress relief methods. So I appreciate that. I feel like I've chosen the right career path and the right analogy to mention my name. But you know what? I absolutely love that one of your biggest stress relievers is, watching the waves and being near the beaches because same. The minute you said that, I was like, oh, another way to connect with uh, Kim because that is so beautiful. If I go on a beach, I don't want to do anything. I just sit there staring out into the ocean like a maniac, honestly. And a lot of people are like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "Don't even talk to me. I'm not even listening to you right now. You can do any crazy thing you want to do. I'm here chilling and enjoying, and let me be." It's a classic introvert moment in an extrovert world, apparently. But yeah.
For sure. Which is why I think I actually did struggle a little bit, after we had kids and we would start taking them to the beach because suddenly my nice stress-free environment was not. It really was not anymore because it was like, okay, where are you? Where are the three of you? What are you doing? How far out are you going? You can't go over there. What? And there's like, you have to get them clean when they come out of the water. And it's like you have to make sure they have on their sunblock. And I'm like, I used to come here to just be. Now I am here and I am hyper vigilant. I am super aware, and this is not a stress free. For a good few years, going to the beach was I felt like it was more stressful than it was worth to go.
Hmm.
So,
I feel that, and I absolutely hear that. Honestly, that is one of the things that I often tell my clients is that some stress relief techniques keep it just with yourself. Like, yes, some of them makes beautiful sense to do it with the family, bring everyone together, but have a couple of them that you are not like dependent on anyone, or
yeah.
you're not in a space where you have to like take care of everyone because you're doing the opposite of stress relief at that point in time. You're just like, oh my god, another 100 things to add to my to-do list while I'm quote unquote relaxing.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So quite frankly, every so often we'll take a little drive up to the beach without the kids. Or yeah,
I
exactly.
love
Or if
that.
we're like staying at a beach house or something, then it's fine. If they're indoors and they're like, okay, fine, we'll go take a little walk and just no stress. Love them, but exactly that's the whole point, right? Want to make sure they're safe. But anyway, that's a whole other story. Um, well, Madhurima and I have a lot to talk about today. Um, and yes, the realities of the stress that parenting brings is one of the things that we are going to be diving more in depth into. But we're also looking at how stress affects your marriage, because an interesting thing is it's twofold, right? Your being married sometimes can increase your stress levels, but then when you also have high levels of stress from from outside influences, that has an impact on how you react and interact with your spouse. So then it creates a certain amount of tension and resentment and frustration within the relationship too. So we're going to talk about all of that, um and especially in the you know well, I know in the US, for example, they have Thanksgiving coming up soon, right? And that's a big holiday for our American friends. And then right after that, we head into December and all of the craziness with year-end celebrations, those who celebrate Christmas, all the various holidays. It's a lot of family time, which is great too. I mean, many of us have wonderful family memories from this time of year, but for many others, not so much. For some, it's very traumatic to relive. For some, it's, missing things that they once had that they no longer do. And for others, it's like, it's just too much family in too short a space of time, in too small a space. So, um, Madhurima and I were also discussing that our last conversation around stress and family was in November last.
Yeah, last November we had a beautiful workshop around holiday stress, and I was so excited by it. And even I think we will be bringing some of those elements into today's conversation. But I feel like it's so exciting to be able to speak to these things solely because it is very deeply connected into how we celebrate festivals here in India as well. Like we do not celebrate Thanksgiving, like unless we are a proper Christian family, we do not essentially celebrate Thanksgiving. It's not a big holiday here. And
Mhm.
so when whenever we are celebrating the other festivals, which we have hundreds of, I'm not even gonna lie.
Yeah.
Yeah, we do have a lot of festivals.
And isn't it like,
Oftentimes,
yes,
yeah.
isn't it also wedding season? Like,
It is. It is. It gets chaotic. And I hear so many stories of my mom telling how, in the yesteryears, there used to be the entire community used to come together to kind of help with the support of, weddings and preparing all the things, ensuring everything was happening. So it was not the wedding of just like two families, it was the wedding that the entire community came together inside. But when it comes to just festivals, especially if you are living not in a joint family but in like a tiny family in and of itself, oftentimes I have seen my mom work herself to the bones
yeah.
during festival season, because while we also celebrate festivals, we are also huge foodies. So festivals equates lots of good food. And when I was younger, that just equated to me stuffing myself with food and going to a beautiful food coma and waking up in the evening, stuffing myself with food again, and then going back to sleep. And that was the epitome of my celebration. I used to wake up just to eat and go back to sleep just so that I could get up and eat again. And the food we used to cook used to be a lot, right? So we used to like eat it for a couple of days because creating snacks and all of those things, it's not just
Mm,
instant food, it's food that kind of carry forwards to couple of days. uh,
yes.
as I grew older, I also realized,
Tradition.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And as I grew up, I realized, oh, this is food that my mom's making. So she
Yeah.
is the one who's sitting there and doing it all. Like, and when we were younger, like my mom, only very recently she allowed me to kind of get into the kitchen and help her with cooking, because she's like, I don't want anyone kind of like troubling me. Do other things if you need to, but don't come into the kitchen. So it was a very honorable moment for me to kind of get into the kitchen and be like, oh, I'm frying stuff. Even though I told her I have a 4 years degree in hotel management where we used to do all of this stuff and more in less precautions
You
kind
can't
of a
come in her
space.
kitchen.
She never, quite recently, like just a couple of days, couple of months, from the past couple of months or so, she has allowed me to kind of get into the kitchen. That was one of my gratitude points that I wrote on my calendar. My mom allowed me to make food with her in the kitchen. Hurrah! I was so grateful for that. But that means for the past, oh gosh, 28 years I'm dating myself here, but for the past 28 years she's been the one doing it all on her own. And the
Yeah,
stress of it all, because she used to wake up at like 4
yeah,
or 5 in the morning to kind of like prepare food for everyone, ensure that everyone's fed, and all the other craziness of rituals and regulations and all of those things. um, I have seen how chaotic it can get.
yeah.
As I think back to it, festivals were often a stressful space for my mom, because she had to be the one doing
Doing
everything
everything.
quite literally.
Yeah,
And we were all just chilling and enjoying while she was in the kitchen working herself to, like the bones and all. So I can kind of relate how chaotic it can get.
yeah,
And which is why I was really passionate about the conversation that we had last time and the one that we'll be having today as well. So yeah.
yeah. Because and the story that you're giving us there about your mom, you know, that story gets repeated across cultures, across countries. It is that idea of, especially as mothers. I mean, there are fathers who are involved too, but a lot of mothers, this is what they do. They take it upon themselves to plan the events, to plan the experiences, to do everything. I know my own grandmother. It's only recently. Yes, would she allow other people to, bring dishes or do things? But no, otherwise it's like, well, I have to wake up at 4 a.m. and start cooking this and start cooking that. I was like, no, you don't. You really don't have to. But it was almost like if there was this piece of her that was like, no, this is my rule. This is my responsibility. And if you take it away from me, then, what is?
Oh, that hit hard. That's so true, because I've had that conversation so many times with my mom. I'm like, you don't have to do this all on you. She's like, I have to. And I'm like, but yeah, no.
Yeah,
Relatable. 100% relatable.
exactly. And I would love to say that that's something that belongs to another generation, but it doesn't. It's something that we actually seem to perpetuate. And strangely enough, in my home, my husband does more of the cooking. Okay, I'll be honest, he does most of the cooking. Um, but that doesn't change the fact that there are certain things I still feel like are my responsibility. There are certain, when it comes to the holidays, yes, he might be the one responsible for the food, but it's like everything else I have to do, I have to be in control of. And yes, that creates a tremendous amount of stress. And it's like, but this is not supposed to be a time for stress. And when you find yourself in a situation where you are like shouting at your kids and being very ill tempered, short tempered with them, when they are just being their normal selves, it's the same child that you had 2 weeks ago. Right? The only difference between the child 2 weeks later is that you are trying to get through your extra long to-do list. So you have less patience for their antics. And you're not there in the moment and enjoying the experience and building the memories with them. So, you know, what can we do?
That's such a good question, and I relate to that really, really hard. I would say one of the things that came up to my mind when you were sharing this wonderful story uh, was essentially the fact that, once again, pre-preparation, right?
Yeah.
Think so before the festival happens. Sit down and ask yourself, what are the things that I want to 100% do, what are the things that I can ask for support from
Yes.
someone around me, and what are the things that I can make it a family moment, as opposed to me having to do this all by myself, right? So what are the things I need to work on, what are the things my spouse potentially needs to work on, and what are the things that we can bring everyone together into to kind of like have fun while we are doing this. And a good example of that that just randomly popped up into my mind, I don't know if you've seen the movie Crazy Rich Asians, but if you have, they, while they're preparing food, they're all sitting on this really big dining table, and everyone's kind of like making dim sums, and they're doing it all together. The kids, the elders, everyone is together in that space, kind of like supporting each other, and um,
Mhm.
having conversations, being a part of that family, being a part of that community, but everyone is equally involved. And the story that they share is they've been doing that since they were kids. So it's an integral part of their memory as well, that this is not something that happened very instantaneously. This is something that's been happening. And I think that is one of the things that I feel like would be absolutely beautiful, um, if you think about it, is assign those roles ahead in time. Not on the day of the event, not on the day of the festival, because you're already pretty kind of like, as you said, annoyed by that point. You're like, if I have to tell you how to do this and explain it to you 5 times, it's better I do it. I would have done it by now, right?
Exactly.
But
And
if you,
better.
and better, exactly. But if you tell this to someone ahead in time, like a week ahead in time, like, hey, you know what, do you want to take over this particular responsibility? And they're like, I don't know how to do that. You're like, oh, that's pretty easy, we can do this. They're like, but this might work and this might not work. And you're like, no worries, let's figure it out. Let's plan it, let's make it a part of the festival, right? Like, let's
Mhm.
figure it out. The figuring it out is also an exploration in and of itself, and it's a fun part, especially when you are having kids around you. You're like, let's play detective, let's figure out how is the best solution to this particular problem. And it becomes easier because you're not carrying so much responsibilities. It's not happening on the day of the event, it's happening ahead, way ahead in time, right?
Exactly.
And
And
so, yeah, go ahead.
I was just saying, let's be real. If parts of this conversation are resonating with you, it's because you've had these experiences. So you're not. This is not a theoretical conversation. You know how you're going to get on that day.
Yeah,
So pre-plan.
exactly. Yeah,
Right?
I know. I get pretty annoyed. Like, if I have to tell someone 5 things on the day when there's a deadline or there's a time crunch of some sort, which is
Mhm.
often what happens here in Indian festivals. We have something called as Muhurat, which is essentially the best auspicious time to do a particular ritual, kind of a thing, or a puja essentially. We
Mhm.
need to get it done by that time. If I am sitting and having a conversation and explaining you 100 times how to do something, I am going to get pissed off. I am going to be like, you know what? Let me do it. Just sit in a corner. Don't talk to me. Do whatever you want to do. Watch Netflix. I don't care. Don't talk to me. But if I'm
Exactly.
having that, yeah, I'm having that conversation. If I'm doing that with a younger kid, that is now going to become an integral part of their memory, and they are
Mhm.
probably going to get limiting beliefs out of it, and then I'm going to feel guilty about it, especially as someone who's like probably thinking of all of these things. I'm like, oh no,
Mhm.
I'm such a bad mom, how could I have done that? Oh, and
Yeah.
then you kind of spiral down, and it's not a fun experience for anyone involved. And so I am a big believer in doing it ahead in time, having those conversations ahead in time, so that even if they are messing up on the day, they already have kind of like plan A to plan Z on how to fix it up. And even if they mess up, you're like, it's okay. Like, they tried their best. I
Try.
love them for that. It's
Exactly.
not like they're like not doing anything at all. They tried their best, and that's a
Yes.
part of the journey too. Like, if you're making gingerbread cookies and the cookies are not in the shape they're supposed to be, I'm not going to get angry about that. I'm going to be like, okay, fine, man, let's see it. It's a good cookie. But
Exactly.
yeah,
Because the memory, they're not remembering how perfect those cookies came out in the end. I can I can honestly tell you, I have very little memory of which of the cakes that I made with my grandmother was the perfect one. But what I do remember are the nights where I stayed up helping her slice them and layer them and get the cream ready and set them, and you know that is what I remember,
yeah.
not how perfect it was. So it's the same for your kids. What they want is that time with you. they're
Exactly.
really not going to remember how pretty it was. I mean, now you could take all the 101 photos if you want, but
Yeah.
it's that's not the memory they're keeping, and that is so important with all of these traditions, all of these festivals and holidays coming up. It's the memories that you are creating, it's the processes, it's the time, the attention. That's what our families want from us, our time and our
Mhm.
attention, not
Exactly.
the Pinterest perfect end result.
Exactly. And I would also say, like, if you do mess up on the day of the holiday, don't hold yourself, like, don't be a judge who's constantly criticizing yourself. Take a deep breath, step back, allow yourself to come back to your body, have a conversation with your kid, take a 5-minute breather. Nothing's going to crash and burn. The world will never crash and burn in the next 5 minutes, like unless you are waiting near a nuclear launch site and you're like, I have to press this button or the missile's gonna blast. Blah. That is not the case. I would say 99% of the time when you are spending festivals with your kids and your family, right? Like they're not in that space, you're not in that space. So take a step back, take a few breathers, and then just sit with your kid and be like, hey, I'm sorry that happened. And a lot of times when you communicate with them that, hey, I'm sorry this happened, what can I do to fix this, what can we do, mommy was stressed, there were a lot of things going on, I apologize. Just those 5 minutes of that conversation, they are going to say, it's okay, don't worry
Right.
about it, I understand. Like that is going to happen. So you don't have to hold yourself to the highest of regards of quote unquote being the perfect mom, being the perfect spouse, being the perfect everything, doing everything perfectly. Allow yourself that grace and that extra loving. I feel like you absolutely need to give yourself that extra loving on holidays when you are extremely
Oh,
stressed out. Yeah.
I think so. Actually, now before we continue, I wanted to bring
Mm.
this one up because I have been doing it now. I admit I haven't been doing it every single day, right? So Madhurima, you're gonna correct me. I can't
Yes.
remember the exact name. It's a 5 day challenge that you are running. It's
Yep.
called is it Stress Less?
Yep.
What is
It's a 5 day stressless challenge.
5 day Stress Less challenge? So I have successfully completed two of the days so far. By the way, it is absolutely lovely. I mean, you'll get your daily email, super short video, one practical tip you can apply. Tip number one was about the playlist and the dancing and the movement, and tip number two is how to hug yourself. And and Marima gives you very very specific instructions. She's like, it's not just a don't go grab yourself like that. She tells you how to do it too. It's
There are photos with instructions in the email is all I'm saying.
so, um, I, I'm yes, I am making a little plug for you as well in this piece because sometimes you just need those little reminders. And like yesterday, I had a lot of stuff to do, and I saw the email come in, and I'm like, I don't have time for that, and that was a mistake. I think what I should have done when I saw the email was stop and yes, take those 5 minutes and just be like, okay, because I can tell you something that I mean that day with the hug, I was like, oh yeah, 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 we know. But I tried it anyway. And I have to say, just like that first beginning process and then taking those couple of deep breaths, I was surprised by the level of calm that I just felt almost immediately. It was just like that pattern interrupt that I talk about so
Mm.
much from like the busy of my day, from the distractions and believe me, your day, although you're doing all the things on your to-do list, they're almost like distractions. So it's like, okay, calm, quiet, right, rejuvenated. Let's go back. So I don't know, Matter. We could just tell us very quickly how people can access that challenge. I
Yep.
think that's something they should be looking out for.
Yep, it is called the 5 day stressless challenge. And what you can do is actually reach out to me after this conversation is done on either LinkedIn or Instagram or even Facebook. And what I will do is send you the link to the page, to the sign up page, because on the sign up page you will find a masterclass, and on the success page you'll find a bonus masterclass. So like there's a lot of information, theory and practical included in there. I do not have the link on hand, but I will grab it as we continue talking, and I can share that with you, Kim, so that we can add it to the comment section as well, if that helps.
Yeah, no problem. Sounds good to me. And we can always throw it on our YouTube and all of that stuff afterwards too.
Yes.
And so it is. It really, and as I said, you know, one of the things that I love to pass on are simple, implementable strategies. Something that you can use, actually use, and use immediately. So, and that is one of the things I found very helpful with the stress less challenge. So yeah, look out for it,
Thank you
please.
so much.
You're welcome. Okay, so now here's an interesting piece, right? I have to tell you, every time that my husband and I had any of our biggest fights, they tended to be around holiday time. And, ooh, there we go. And one of the reasons why that was because it was just all of these extra tensions and all of these extra people. Listen, when you're dealing with in laws, when you're dealing with your own family, you can feel stressed now. Then you add in-laws on top of that, and you have two people who come from, it's different for every couple, but sometimes you have two people who come from very different family dynamics, very different histories, and now you're all together and nobody agrees on anything. And the snarky comments from the mother-in-law or the sister-in-law who is all so perfect, and of course the brother-in-law who really is not perfect and just adds stress by his presence. But we know we all have the people in our families, right? All the characters. And it's, I think one of the important things for us to remember is that we have zero control over any of those people. All right. But the only person we have control over is ourselves. So I don't know, Madhurima, I know we talked about this last year as well, but I know you had some interesting pieces around that whole idea of, what you can do for yourself, how you can kind of,
Yeah.
because, because
Yeah, no, thank you so much for that wonderful question. I'm glad I was on mute because I snorted and laughed really loudly, and my dogs came to check on me. So I'm glad that I was on mute at that particular point in time. I didn't snort on live TV, which is very good of me to do that, yeah. But no, I feel that. I feel like as you're talking about all of these things, I once again realize how many similarities exist between our cultures, because that is 100% true across any and all festivals. Thankfully, we only celebrate within ourselves right now. We don't, like, spend time with relatives, because one side of the relatives are kind of like we have separated ourselves from them completely, uh, and the other side of the relatives, they don't live here, so we are not really traveling to each other during festivals. um, but I have experienced that as a young kid, not personally, but I've
yeah,
seen that happen within conversations. uh, I think one of the biggest things is, like you said, it's not in our control, even. And I'll use an example of me and my mom. If
mm,
sometimes we have fights, we say ugly things to each other, which is normal. Let's be honest, it's normal. It's part of
mm,
the journey, right? So we kind of like have fights and all, and she says something, I say something else. uh, it can eat away at ourselves, even if we are like, oh, this doesn't matter, I'm blah blah blah. And so I think one of the biggest things is, in a scenario like that, while both me and my mom apologize to each other, that is not something that does happen sometimes in family
mm,
relations, especially when there people are coming over together to, in to be in a holiday space. Essentially, that might not happen.
yeah,
um, and so we can't expect that a lot of times, that there is going to be an apology after this, because sometimes
mm.
they're not even aware that they are hurting others with
They're
what they're
not
saying.
aware.
right? And
Absolutely.
if exactly, and if we try to make them aware that, oh shit, that hurt, like, shouldn't have said that, oftentimes that can just lead to another argument and another thing on top of each other, which is not something that, in any way, shape, or form relieves the holiday stress.
Mm.
So if you do want to have that confrontation, or if you do want to kind of like set that forward, that hey, this is something you said that hurt me, my invitation, do it after the holidays, not on the day of the holiday, simply because it is not going to do anything.
It's
It's not
not.
going to help anyone involved. It's just going to like, and it's not even about like spoiling other people's mood. It's just going to add more stuff onto you as an individual. So
Mhm.
yes, have that conversation, but potentially have it after the holiday is done. But on the day, if there are snarky comments being made or anything along those lines that's happening, I often do a couple of things, two or three things essentially. One is I don't even let it enter my head. We have the saying, don't even let it enter your ear. Like, let it reflect out from right here. But also, oftentimes, we are human beings. We
Mhm.
do hear things and it does hurt. And
Mhm.
so, have a conversation with yourself, take a few deep breaths, process whatever you need to process. If you're really angry at any of the comments that were being made, process your own emotions. So it's not dependent on anyone else. So, like, for example, if I am angry, I scream into a pillow, or I lock my door and I slam the pillow onto the bed a couple of times, somatically releasing a lot of the anger that I'm holding on to.
Yeah.
And once it's out of my body, once I've processed it, it is a lot more easier for me to not be as affected by it.
Right.
When
Right.
I'm slamming the pillow, or when I'm screaming into a pillow, for example, um, I am also, at least inside my mind, speaking out things of what hurt me about that particular comment. Like, how could she say this to me? Blah blah blah. I'm getting it all out of my system. I'm not like letting it be a mental dialogue. I'm allowing it to come out as I scream. I even say it out loud sometimes, or write things out loud. So like I'm writing it, I'm like, how dare she do this to me? Like, you're writing a revenge letter or something like that. But it helps you to kind of get things and allow it not to stay in your body and get it out of your body. Once it's out of your body, take a couple of deep breaths, come back to yourself, and then, okay, they said that. I don't have any control over what they said. I don't think what they said was intended to hurt me, or even if it was, I don't think that this particular thing is true. I mean, if it is true, then that is a whole different conversation.
That's a
But a
different
lot of times,
situation, exactly, and it hits a
yeah,
different way.
yeah, exactly. But if it is not, if it is just a useless comment that was being said, essentially, that does not hold any truth to it, you'd be like, it doesn't even make sense. Like,
Correct.
I don't allow that to hold any power over me. And so
Exactly.
it's out of your body, you've processed your emotion, it stops being as heavy, you stop carrying the weight of it all. And then
Mhm.
post that, I'm usually like putting in headphones and singing my own songs really loudly, or while I'm working, or I'm listening to songs, because what that helps me do is not not hear what they're saying, not hear what everyone around me is saying. I'm just focused on my work. Now, how this translates to your own environment, especially during a festival season, is a conversation that I think you can think about. Like, be creative about it. But
Yeah.
what do you think about that, Kim? I would love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I like it because it's twofold, right? It is accepting that what is happening around you has happened, and then figuring out how you can um, process it and release it. Now, there are lots of mixed views around this. Some people will tell you if you have family who brings such anger out in you, that they are toxic and therefore you should stay away from them and distance yourself from them. And what I would say is that in certain cases there is scope for that, right? In other cases, you may not be able to separate yourself from them. And in that case, then you have to have a plan. Now, here's one of the other, and then this is a plan that you can have. You mentally prepare yourself for dealing with these difficult personalities. You mentally remind yourself that this is on them. What they say, how they act, those are their choices. And then how you reciprocate is your choice. How you engage with them is your choice. I'm not saying it's easy, by the way. And please, as
It sucks.
it's awful. I mean, nobody wants to deal with a miserable person. Nobody wants to deal with somebody who's always critical, who's never happy. Again, we all have them. We all have them, right? So, um, and now I know another big issue that comes up, especially for married couples. It's like when the person who's overly critical is your spouse's relative, whether it's a parent or a sibling, and you feel like your spouse isn't taking up your defense. Okay, that's a really, really, really hard one. Um, And especially in those cases, your spouse definitely isn't going to be in support of physically removing yourselves from the situation, right? So how do you deal in those situations? So Madhurima, I know we could talk about that too, but one of my suggestions around that is exactly what we have been talking about. So two things that we have already said, right? Pre-planning. Now, I know you probably have had numerous arguments with your spouse about that situation, and we're going back into it again. All right. So, yes, start having have your venting sessions about it with yourself. All right. Throw your pillows, throw your shoes, um, journal about it, talk about it with a trusted mentor or a trusted friend. Not just here to, speak ill of other people. You want actual resolution from this. And yes, get to that point where you can have this conversation with your spouse about how you feel, not about how your spouse acts, not about how your what you believe to be true about his or her family. Okay, this is about how you feel, how you are impacted. Remember, we're using I statements. Okay,
I love that.
yes, we're talking about asking for the support you need. These are all of the in advance conversations, and don't expect a miracle to happen overnight.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing, okay?
Yep.
Um, and then, as Madhurima pointed out, if things aren't going the way you hope they will go, and you find yourself back in this pattern on the day of the event when everyone is around and it's hard to get even a moment to yourself, that may not be the best time to vent about it to your spouse either. Okay, that is something again. Take your time, process it, release it, and have that calm conversation with them afterwards. It's like, this is what I was talking about. This is what happened. Try to be as factual about the situation as possible, and then explain how you felt in that moment.
Yep. I
Okay?
love that. I would also suggest, kind of like attached piggybacking of what you're saying, potentially after the holiday is done, and like you kind of are back in your own world without any external influences around you. You're back into normal living space essentially, without many people around you. At that point in time, one of the things you can also do is sit down, ask your spouse if this feels like a good time to have a conversation. Are they open to have a conversation right now? And if they are, uh, have like a co-venting session. One of the things that I found to be extremely helpful is sit down and ask them, okay, what was your experience of the festival? What were some of the things that you absolutely enjoyed, and what were some of the things that you didn't enjoy? I am going to sit here and I'm going to listen to you, like carefully listen to you, and be in a space where I can support you through whatever you need.
Yeah.
And after they have said their piece, ask them if they are comfortable to hear what your experience was like, and then you can share your own experience. So it's kind of like a no man's zone at that point in time, because you have heard their piece. By some default, it also means that they are open to hearing yours, and they are open to receiving the same love, care and support that you provided them with when they were sharing what were some of their struggles. and then wrap it up with, okay, yeah, that was a lot. Understandably so, that was a lot. What are some of the ways that we can now celebrate the beautiful festival we just went through, but the essence of that festival, but just between us as partners, just
Yeah.
between the two of us, how can we celebrate that?
Yeah.
Thanksgiving is all about gratitude, so can we sit down here and share what we are grateful for within each other? Christmas is the time for gifts, so can we spend some time and use the love languages, our primary love languages, and have that conversation on how I
Mhm.
can love on you a bit extra and how you can love on me a bit extra. So it becomes a part of building that relationship. It doesn't feel like we are breaking this beautiful relationship that we have built after
Exactly.
so much love, care, and hard work. uh, Arguments don't feel like, oh, I had this argument, no one knows what's going to happen after this. Like, is this marriage gonna crash and burn, is this relationship gonna crash and burn? That is not a possibility, because you are also doing the hard conversations and following it up with some extra loving and care for each other. And so that
Exactly.
that makes it a nice thing to kind of relax back on, that this is not the end. This is more like, let's build this so that we don't have to have this conversation again next year, or maybe not at this high an intensity. Like, even if we do have a conversation, the goal is not to be at 100, but at least to get it to a 90, or at least a 95, so that it's not at the same level of intensity, and maybe eventually over the years it will come down,
Mhm.
but at least it's decreasing.
Exactly. And the thing is, some of these things they're never fully resolved.
Mhm.
It's an ongoing situation. You find new ways to adapt, and you find different things come up and how you interact. And I think one of the key things here to keep coming back to is that, you and your spouse have that level of respect and support for each other. And once you have that, a lot of the other things then become more manageable and not stress free maybe, but less stressful.
Mhm.
I wanted to just add one piece to what Madhurima was saying there as well about, finding ways that, how can you and your spouse, or when nobody, when the rest of the family isn't around, how can you, celebrate? And that is also very important for all of these holiday, festivals and traditions coming up. What can you do? What is your ritual? Whether it's the ritual between the two of you or with your immediate family, your spouse and your kids. What are a couple little things that you can do for each other? All right, with each other, without anybody else. Because I'll tell you something, sometimes you can draw a lot of strength from those things. When you know that there's a certain level of respect and support from your spouse, you can handle a lot more. When you feel that love and that sense of being cherished and are able to appreciate each other that you get from having those shared rituals, that then feeds into you being able to, have more patience, more grace, more tolerance when the extended family jumps in. So it's a lot of pieces. And so what we really are advising you right now is, like, again, if you are coming from that place of 100 or 110, you may not completely eradicate that before your first, hot family event of the season. But start thinking about it, how you're going to approach it, how you can approach it differently this year that you haven't done before. Remember, you've been involved in all of these things too. What can you do differently? Talk to your partner about it. All right.
Yep, that's a beautiful piece of advice. Like, have those conversations with your partner, game plan ahead in time to see what you can do better next time,
Hmm.
because that's going to be really really powerful. Because you're not figuring it out alone, and you don't have to.
No,
You
no.
absolutely do not have to. You can do it together with your partner, with your family, and yeah, take it one step at a time.
Yes, exactly. All right, now we're going to start wrapping up soon. But before we do that,
Yes.
Madhurima, one of the things we also wanted to talk about was, year end. But we decided it wasn't quite it wasn't resolutions. It was more like, evaluation.
Hmm.
Like,
Reevaluation.
reevaluate.
Ooh. Yep. I guess my camera is stuck. Give me. I'm listening to you all, but I'm also asking my brother to get my camera. I mean, I do look very contemplative, but yes, please go ahead. Please go ahead. I'm listening to you.
That's fine. That's fine. And we're hearing you perfectly. So that's good too.
Nice.
Um, all right. So, at the end of the year, we sometimes, look back on what has happened and we look at the different aspects of our life, relationships, spirituality, parenting, all of the different things.
Hmm.
Um, and sometimes maybe we haven't achieved the goals for ourselves that we wanted to achieve. Do you have any advice for us going into this season where everyone starts talking about resolutions, which are a whole other issue? I mean, I'm not convinced about them either, but that's another thing.
Yeah.
Right. But we know what happens, right? People look at like what they said they were going to do at the start of the year, like, oh crap, we're at November now, and I haven't done anything about that.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I think that is something every individual on this planet goes through is the struggle of um, I had so many plans and it did not pan out the way that I wanted it to.
Mm-hmm.
And I think when you are in this mind space, a lot of times it can end up being like, hey, I suck being, resolute, or I suck at being accountable to myself. And we kind of get into the self-hate space as opposed to let's move forward from a space of love and caring and affection for ourselves. And I think one of the things when the year end comes around is not what went bad. Like, yes, look at it, reflect on it, because I think that's extremely important on thinking back on why did this not work, but do so from a space of um, how should I say, do that from a space of logical exploration as opposed to emotional exploration. Like,
Exactly.
okay, what did not work, let's look at that. And why did this one particular goal that I had said that I was sure to have accomplished by the end of the year did not exactly work out the way that I wanted it to work out? What went wrong, let's look at that, and let's plan on, if we want to continue doing this, what can we do to ensure that the next time, or even from this point onwards, if I want to kind of like, continue working on this goal, what can I do better now?
Correct.
Not getting stuck in the past. I think a lot of times we get stuck in the past, and that's the biggest issue. um, think logically and approach it from a space of what can we do better now in this given moment in time,
Given moment.
and move forwards from that. I think that is the best thing you can do when you're starting up new year resolutions, is have those conversations. Even
Right.
as you reevaluate and evaluate yourself, have those conversations on what can I do better now in this given
Exactly.
point in time. Yeah.
Because that's the only time we have.
Yep.
Now, Madhurima, where can people find you?
Ooh, people can find me pretty much on all the platforms: LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. I'm not that much on Twitter, but YouTube as well. And just search my name, Madhurima Sappatti, and I'm pretty annoying on all platforms, which means that you can find me everywhere. If you search my name, I'm there. Hey, I've been I've been talking to people and being 100% overall annoying while I do that. So yeah, I'm like a pest that you can't get rid of. Honestly, and I say that with the most loving, caring manner
The
to
most loving
myself
way.
and the world. Yes.
Yes,
And
so
I aim to be a bigger pest. So you can find me on all these platforms. Just search my name, Madhurima Sapati, and you'll find me there.
fantastic. And she is super chatty. She will engage with you. So you just reach out to her, send her a message, and find out about, how you can get into the stress less challenge.
Yes, please do that. I would be absolutely grateful to hear all of your thoughts. I think it's really powerful to be in a space where you're like, I want to decrease my stress, and then be like, how do I do that? Here's how. Okay, let's act on it, and just start acting on
Yeah,
it.
Exactly.
Yes.
Thank you so much for being with us today. It was a pleasure, as always, chatting with you.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm sorry for going incognito for a couple of minutes there while my camera was like, I'm gonna die now. Uh,
That's
but
fine.
thank you so much for having me here. It is an absolutely beautiful conversation, and you hold such a beautiful space. And it's
Thank
so
you.
refreshing to be in your role. So, thank you so much for that.
You're welcome. All right. So this show can also be heard on Spanglish Radio Network. Please check out spanglishworld.ca for all the news and programming. Spanglish World, watch it, hear it, read it, download it, live it.